I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 5:02 p.m. I'm going to read the hybrid statement. This meeting of the WSESU will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or the public body has difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call in accordance with the law. Thank you. Very quickly, I would like to amend tonight's agenda to add in the pre-K partnerships that we didn't vote on last night. And moving on very quickly, because I know that she has been waiting. Hi, Sandra. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. No worries. I have plenty of time. Thanks for having me.
So, Sandra is here to talk to us about the superintendent evaluation. And please, we have another member on this board that we did not have last year. So if you could run over it really quickly for everyone, and then anyone can ask her questions.
Absolutely. Again, thanks for inviting me to your board meeting tonight. I'm delighted to be here and share the superintendent evaluation process and to answer any questions you might have. For many of you, this information might be familiar because we completed Superintendent Spino's evaluation last year. Using the same evaluation tool allows for comparison of criteria over time. So that'll be nice that year 2, you will be able to really compare progress on various areas that are outlined in the evaluation and the goals. The superintendent evaluation is an essential part of the board superintendent partnership, and effective July 1, 2025 will be required in the district quality standards. So at the point where boards have to start doing their self-evaluations for the district quality standards, you will be able to check this one off because you are already doing what's going to be required. The process that we use, we have a survey that we've developed, which aligns with the professional standards of educational leaders, and we have it set up in a rating scale. We also suggest, and the DQS will require, embedding the superintendent's goals into the evaluation survey so that we can collect feedback on those goals and specifically around the progress toward meeting those goals. We seek input from 3 groups. That's the superintendent's cabinet, the closest direct reports to the superintendent, the full board, and the superintendent himself. And we'll collect both quantitative information, so the rating scale that I was talking about, and qualitative feedback. So there's open-ended, what else would you like to share with us? And all of that gets summarized. The survey stays open for about 2 weeks. Sometimes we extend just a few days if we want to try to get a few more responses in, and we monitor that, and we're happy to send out reminders if we need to do that. So at most, maybe 2.5 weeks, the survey would be open. And then when the data all comes back, I summarize it and I write a report summarizing, again, the qualitative and the quantitative information. And through that process, sometimes goals might be illuminated. And so I'll make note of this could be a goal area that you might want to think about. And then we'll meet together and go over that information and see where there are themes, answer any questions, see what you think about the goals that were illuminated through this process. Superintendents involved in this process throughout the whole process. We do usually meet with the board just to, maybe 5 or 10 minutes initially, and then ask the superintendent to join when they're ready. And then from there, if we have consensus on all of that feedback, we'll write a final report, embed new goals for the upcoming year, and we provide a space for the board chair and the superintendent to sign that evaluation, and that becomes part of the record. I went pretty fast, so I'm curious if you have any questions about that.
Questions?
Yeah, Sandra, this is Tim Maciel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So first, last year, I think we pretty much agreed that we would like teaching staff involved in the process. It just didn't happen. We ran out of time last year. But I would like your thoughts on that. I don't know if we should involve all staff or do random sampling or what. We haven't got that detail. But I think it's the will of this board to certainly discuss getting staff feedback to make it a
Sure.
360.
Sure. I can tell you that a lot of boards ask about this. It's a common question. The tool that we use, again, is based on the educational leadership standards, so very familiar to the superintendent. And the evaluation process really is aiming to collect feedback to those who know the superintendent's work well, right? They're a direct connection, board and the cabinet, direct connection to the superintendent. They have bird's eye view of all that's happening. For educators and non-licensed staff, it seems that more often there is something like a climate survey that could be useful to collect feedback around the direct connection. And sometimes there's not a real strong direct connection between the educator and the superintendent. There might be a principal in between. There might be, say, a literacy coach in between, right? Sometimes educators don't have direct access and vice versa to the superintendent. So your call. We don't typically, as I explained for the reasons as I explained already, we don't typically include educators or other staff in this process. I wanted to give you an example too of where even within this closest group that I described, folks sometimes have a hard time answering the survey. So what I have seen is for the board, when they're evaluating the area of the superintendent's performance around instructional leadership, sometimes I'll get feedback that says, I just don't have enough information there. And that's okay, right? Because we still have the admin team who can respond to that. And vice versa, sometimes the admin team will respond that they don't have enough information to evaluate the superintendent on the board superintendent relationship because they might not see that. They might not have information about it. And that's fine too. Through this process, we generally have cabinets like generally 8 to 12-ish respondents. And then depending on the size of your board, we could have 30 to 40 people completing this survey just with the 3 groups that I described.
And if the staff came up with, say, a brief 10-item survey with a few open-ended questions, would you be the one to administer it?
I would probably refer you to the person I've been referring to is Jay Nichols at the Principals Association. He has done this work for folks and has a tool that he believes works really well.
We went through Jay, remember last year, and he presented a survey that was inappropriate. It was to evaluate principals, I think.
Oh, okay. We could certainly talk about doing another survey that's geared more toward educators and staff. I think if you decide you want to do a different survey than what we have already developed, we might need to talk again about like what would that look like? What's the timeline? There'll be some time to help develop it, then to issue it. So it's almost like a separate body of work.
Carrie?
Just my recollection of last year is we did not support or did not have unanimous support for including teachers. And speaking for myself, I am not in favor of having that be part of this evaluation. I think doing a staff climate survey would be incredibly valuable, but I think it is separate from this. So I want to hear what the staff has to say, but I think in evaluating the superintendent, there is too much of a disconnect. And I think it would be unfair, but I would like to hear what the staff is thinking of our overall district, and that could be something we could do separately.
I agree, and I think that that would put us in the position of trying to compare apples and oranges instead of apples to apples. So I bow to the will of the rest of the board, one way or another, so.
Well, that's why it's good that we have meeting notes, because we pursued this, I think, with Jay, with the understanding that the board had agreed to it. But I'll check the meeting notes.
To which part? Like, I feel like we agreed that it would be great to do a climate survey, but I didn't think it was connected to the superintendent evaluation.
Okay.
I would agree with you there.
I did contact Jay, but I remember that, I don't remember what his answer was, but what he provided was not what we were looking for.
Sandra, how much time do we have to get this decided?
The superintendent evaluation?
The staff evaluation part.
It's really up to you. I believe if the contract looks the same this year, I think for superintendent eval, I think you have a January 15th date, right? For staff, like a climate survey, I don't know of a timeline.
There isn't one in the contract.
Okay. I have a couple of other questions, but refer to you.
Sean,
Yeah, Sandra, this is Sean Murphy. I was just wondering, you said, if I understood you correctly, that the administrators are part of this evaluation process. And so, is that the reason that if you think that it wouldn't be appropriate, or many people don't do staff appreciation because it would be too cumbersome? Or what's the reasoning?
What is the reasoning for not having the educators, but having the admin team?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily advocating for not having the staff. I'm just wondering how this decision came about, in a historical sense.
Sure. Really, it goes back to the closest people. If you think about, your sphere of connections, the closest people that are around the superintendent who have the most knowledge and experience of, in this case, his work. And that's really the admin team and the board.
And in our case, that would be how many individuals?
40.
40?
Yep.
Yeah. And if it was all staff, would it be obligatory? It would be 435? Or it would be, if you want to do it, you could do it, or so.
That's why I thought random sampling.
I mean, from my perspective, the people I work closely with are the administrators, the admin team, and the school board. That's who I spend the majority of my time interacting with and working with to move the district forward.
And historically, that's been pretty typical, isn't it, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
yes.
So on Tim's point, is there any way for staff to do input without a survey? In other words, is there any avenue where staff could contact somebody and say, these are my concerns, or these are things that I would like to say, or,
Oh, there's avenues.
work really well?
Yeah.
So that would be through the principals?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or the association.
Oh, I see.
But-
Yeah.
But would they, going to Sean's point, would they have the ability to participate in this anonymous survey? To add their comments into this mix and not go through their own administrators at all? Where it would be open to individuals if they chose or wished to participate? What would that look like? Or is it possible?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah,
Deborah?
I think I am. This is Deborah
Okay.
Sandra. Hi.
Okay, hi Deborah. Good to see you.
Yeah.
So I think what you might be asking, or what I'm imagining from your question, is a way to perhaps collect the open-ended, the more qualitative narrative feedback from staff, but not the quantitative data. Is that what you're asking?
Is that what I'm asking? I'm not sure what I'm asking right. I'm asking, is there a way for teachers and staff to participate in this survey in the same way that a board member might, the same way an administrator might, but it's voluntary. It just opens it up to the school community. That's what I'm asking.
We can send the same survey to a larger group. It will mean a little bit more administrative work because we sort by group when we report out. There are three, you saw it last year, right? There's three groups for each area that we report the scores out. So it'd be a bit more sorting on our end in terms of like, is this person a board member or is this person a teacher? And I don't know if you're going to want to know, are they educator or are they staff? So it'd be a little bit more administrative sorting on our end, but other than that, and then there'll be a lot more summarizing for me.
Okay.
And while we're on that subject, I have had a specific request made to me that we are able to look at the raw comments.
Yeah.
All of them, not just the summary.
So I can look at the intro to the survey because there's like a basic information page, and it says there that it's confidential unless you somehow divulge your identity, because say perhaps what I've seen in the past is something like, we know Mark comes to the facility meetings, and then I know that that person probably was a facilities person, right? We could include more language to say, your comments will be shared so that people know that you would absolutely want people to know that going forward. It may result in people holding back if they know that people are going to see their raw comments. So that's your call.
Follow-up question. Do administrators realize that the same issue that you're raising with the caveats and the buffers that you're presenting right now, do they hear it that way?
We provide it, we explain it that way.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So then a follow-up is, this is all confidential. This is coming to the SU as confidential data. And we are assessing this not in public session, but in executive session. So I'm wondering, in terms of confidentiality, surely that factors in, that this information is viewed as confidential at its core.
Yeah.
The results, right, sorry. Someone else
I think
speaking.
what Sandra's pointing out though is that if somebody was sitting down at a survey and writing specific things,
Yeah.
and then they thought, well, they're gonna talk about it in an executive session, whoops, where's my razor?
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay. So,
It may result in people being a bit more conservative in their feedback.
yeah, so I think if it's time to have input on which direction, I would think it'd be better to stay with the leadership team, with the 40 individuals, and they would gather information from staff. If there was a direct line where the staff could have a moment to participate in this whole process.
My concern with that approach is it's hardly anonymous at that point. For staff to go to their given administrator, that's not anonymous. That would create even greater reluctance than to leapfrog into a VSBA survey. But I think there are pros and cons with this as we're having this discussion.
And I would just want to say, I'm not opposed to doing more work.
Yeah.
Totally your call. If you decide to go in that direction, I will do the work. We might just talk about a little bit, price that's a little bit higher for more time. Not much.
How much would you be able to anonymize those comments? Like, Mark always attends our meetings, not our special ed or facilities meetings.
Mhm. Right. That is what takes the most time, is to really work on language that conveys the message when there is identifying information, right? Trying to present that information to all of you and protect the person's identity if they've provided something that might indicate who they are.
Is that worth it to you guys?
I'm sorry, what was that?
More work equals more cash. Last year, $700 for this review, which is very reasonable.
No, it's 1,500.
15, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. Something else was 700, so 15 is also very reasonable. It's not a high price.
Well, it's not the dollar amount that really slows me down, it's the fact that when you have 435 people putting input, it's sort of like the survey that Matt coalesced into bullet points. It was all over the map.
I'm even separate and apart from the suggestion about the teachers, it will be more like 40 people.
Oh, 40.
It will be
Yeah.
Mark's cabinet, all of the board
I
members,
see.
anybody else that we really feel ought to be in there. For example, diversity coordinator, that sort of thing.
Yes, okay,
So it would only be 40 people, not 400 odd people.
yes.
So I think the issue is it's not the amount. The amount would be manageable. It's just a question of how to make it anonymous.
Again, I'm thinking she could, to a certain extent, anonymize. Like, where I'm gonna pick on you, Tate. Mark is very responsive to the needs of the special ed department. That changes to, Mark is very responsive to the needs of my department. I don't ever find out it came from Tate, I just know it's a department, and Mark is responsive to the needs thereof. You see what I mean? That's the difference.
Yeah, I really like that verb, anonymize. I've never heard
Oh, really?
That was a distraction. Tied to this issue that we're discussing right now is the ability to read the raw data, to read the raw comments. So, and again, the issue of it being anonymous, I do think that if we go with the 40, if we stay with the limited view that we had last year, there was real concern about the need to see the raw data before you have summarized it, Sandra.
Okay.
That came up. Because you had the numbers, but then you had a summary paragraph about what the tone was. And I think my recollection is that we wanted to see the comments as well.
We really did.
Yes, so I really do want to go with that. That would be my point of view, to see those comments of the 40.
All right.
Anonymized.
Anonymized.
Anonymized as best as you
Anonymized,
can manage,
Yes.
like
Yes.
removing the identifying information from the comments. Like
Right, so-
explained with Tate would say special ed, but when you give us Tate's response, it says our department, my department, the department, and doesn't have his name on it.
So not just copied and pasted, some filtering to remove those places where it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
really, really like them to feel confident in being honest.
Do we have faith that Sandra could work with Anne and Anne could maybe see the list of comments as anonymized as Sandra can do, but Anne could be our double check as one additional firewall.
Yeah, in
So
terms of
that
redacting,
Right, so
Yes.
that then by the time it gets to us,
it's cleaned up,
it's cleaned up.
it's cleaned up.
Like, Anne might go, ooh, they mentioned a date, and I know that there were only 3 people at that meeting, like just weird things.
And we all know what that date
Right,
was.
we all, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so, I'm very comfortable with that.
and I'm certainly well experienced in confidentiality.
Right. So,
Anne is our firewall.
I'm very comfortable with that. I do think that there is significance in seeing the raw data and deciding after reading it, we don't need to go that way again next year.
Yeah, that is a
Right,
distinct
But,
possibility.
but let's try it this year. Let's try the raw data. I think that's the way I'd like to go this year.
Do I have a general consensus on that?
So
Seeing a lot of
40
head nodding.
or not,
Well, we
admin group,
Yeah, school board members and any odd staff members that would interact with Mark or,
and
Directors-
anonymized raw comments with Anne as the firewall, okay.
and directors of programs,
mm-hmm,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what we're talking about.
yeah.
Yes,
But
okay.
again, I don't know that, say, Michaela is his cabinet,
So-
maybe,
So how does,
but
she's
she's going to her, so.
so that was one example, but let's say there are other examples that might fall through the cracks who are not officially part of that cabinet. How is that going to be determined?
Usually I send a list, I can send it to you guys
Got it.
first.
Okay, great. Of
And
people
Mark
that
actually usually sends me his list and
we can expand
we
upon
can
it.
expand from there.
Okay,
Sean,
Could you tell me the timeline for this process?
this will get started really, really fast.
And
Because until-
conclusion?
It must be concluded and in Mark's hands by January 15th.
So it happens during budget season.
Yeah, and
Which doesn't
it was a
help.
bit of a scramble last year because we started 1 month later than where I am right now, which is beginning of the year, let's have this meeting. So
I
I
think-
don't think scrambling is good, I don't think it's good for Mark, I don't think it's good for us, and I don't think it's good for the district, so.
I think last year we were fiddling around with dates in November for when the survey was supposed to be completed.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets dicey, and it had to be extended by 2 weeks because too few people had participated, and we had to send out, sort of notices, so, yeah, okay.
So what have we decided about the next step for involving or not the staff?
I think we've decided not this year, but we like the idea of doing a climate survey, which is separate from the superintendent's review.
I would propose that we at least speak to staff department heads, get their feedback first.
How would you feel about department heads being in there, Mark?
I don't have a lot of direct communication with them.
No, but what you do impacts them. That's why their feedback is valuable, I think.
I think it would be valuable feedback for Hannah, for sure.
Great.
Oh, sorry, Bryn.
Just wondering or noting, if we were pulling department heads or teacher leaders from just one school, does that create an equity issue versus?
Be all schools.
If we pull teacher leaders from, it would be from all schools.
The department heads, I believe, are only at the BAMs and PHS.
We can use a more expansive language than that, but we're blowing it on the correct term, but no, we wouldn't. I wouldn't want it to be UHS to the exclusion of the other schools.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be an option.
That would not feel good to the elementary schools.
If I might, in completing the last evaluations, I would find it hard if someone weren't at my level or my coordinator's level to really feed in accurately or reliably because of the limitation of his interaction at their level. We work so closely together but then we're taking it and bringing it down to our respective staff. So it's filtered by another layer. And that's just my only input to give you about that. I do think that it can be very valuable. I agree with you about having some other way to gather some information, but the specific questions about how like budgeting process, how information is being presented to the board, things like that, we have a lot more direct knowledge of and can really provide feedback. I just don't know that other people see that in a regular form.
So I think about my own experience as an educator and working with the equivalent of a superintendent. I was influenced by that tone of leadership. But I did not have the specific, I didn't have the ability to provide specific feedback in the way that you're talking about, Tate, and I appreciate that. But I was definitely influenced by tone and by direction and a real sense of the filter down, right? And an awareness of that. So I think it would be useful to open it up to staff and teachers, perhaps not in this context, but in the context of somewhere along the way, how do you feel about overall leadership? And how, let's track it, not just immediate supervisors, but just the overall tone of the educational system in our district. And that might be a survey going out to staff and teachers.
It does sound separate from the superintendent.
Yeah, I think
It really does.
I think so. The questions were very specific to that working relationship with the superintendent. Very specific. So I would suggest going in that direction.
You look like you got something else to say.
We're not talking about the survey now, we're just talking about the superintendent evaluation, is that correct?
I think we've
I
just
mean,
decided
in conjunction,
to
but
make
we're
it a
not
different
we're
thing,
not-
yeah.
putting it
Yeah.
on the timeline.
No.
But I think
No,
we're
we're
saying
not.
we
Separate and
like
distinct.
the idea of a district-wide climate survey that we have not fleshed out yet.
Right,
Yeah.
right, that's it, that's what
That
I'm
sounds about
feeling, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but definitely the ability to, for the core group, for the superintendent's eval, to see the raw data, to see the comments. Sanitized.
Could you tell me what the volume of that would be? How many pages?
There's 6 sections, and every board is different. But you likely, maybe like half to 3/4 of a page of comments for each of the 6 sections.
Oh, so it's like a long chapter.
Long chapter.
I think some participants wrote liberally in response and felt that's their output, and some just did the numeric score to a large degree with few comments. I think it was a mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound good.
And just to clarify the protocol here, when you write a summary, Sandra, does that go directly to the chair, to Anne?
Yes.
Before it's distributed?
Yes. And the superintendent.
Okay, and at that point, it's the SU chair that disseminates it to the board members on the SU.
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously, it would not be appropriate for Mark to see the raw comments.
No,
Right. Right.
It won't
absolutely
be
not.
sufficiently anonymized for him.
Right.
But
Right.
wouldn't it be more proper for the board to see the summary first, to agree on that summary before going to the superintendent?
What do you guys think? Your opinion counts here too.
I think the process of last year made a lot of sense to me. I thought it was really helpful feedback. It helped me identify goals. It's not broken, I don't know what we're trying to fix. I thought Sandra did a really nice job.
She did do a very nice job. I think we're a little uncomfortable with the idea that Mark would get that information ahead of us.
Yeah.
We'd really like to know what we're looking at before.
I mean, I want to see the true outcome of the survey.
Yes, but I'm gonna double check that commentary data to make sure really you can't tell who it is. Definitely.
Yeah, I would think that, I'm just trying to understand what you just said, Mark, that you would see the summary statement coming from Sandra, not the list of all comments.
Sure.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand what you just said. Okay,
That's what happened last year.
that's what happened
Seemed
last
to
year.
work just fine.
What happened last year that we might want to tweak this year is that I think we saw as a board the statement from Sandra. We were in an executive session and Mark was also present in that session. It might be that what I'm hearing is we might want to have a conversation as a board first.
Yes, that sounds reasonable.
So the board
Generally-
wants to see the summary first?
Or the board wants the privilege or the availability of having a confidential conversation among board members only before engaging actively with the superintendent.
Yes.
And
That's-
did that not happen last year, Deborah? Usually we do that.
I do not recall.
we did.
We did? Did we?
I thought
Okay,
we did.
so,
I thought we had our own, and then
remember
we
sitting
called,
there.
and then we called Mark in.
Right. That's what we usually do.
Like we
Okay.
were in there and we said, give us a few minutes. And then
Okay.
we all.
all right,
Well,
well,
yeah, the bottom line here is that I think the board would like to engage in the summary rather than being given a summary by somebody outside the district.
well, that's a different issue, I think. Sandra is going to write a summary, but if we, as a board, receive the raw comments, sanitized, redacted, we then have a better sense of the summary statement that Sandra has constructed. We have a better sense of the tone of it, and that's what I would like. I certainly don't want to eliminate that summary that Sandra writes. I don't want the responsibility of writing that summary. I just want to see the backup data that leads to those summary narratives.
I agree. It will give us a deeper understanding of what people are saying.
That's the piece that I would like, not to eliminate the summary that Sandra is writing.
No, but I also don't want to have us rewrite the summary.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
that's
Just
exactly
wanted
what
to-
I'm saying.
Oh, that's
I
not what I'm saying, because you can have a pile of raw data and the five of us can read it and have a different take on what the salient points are than Sandra.
So in response to that, if we have the raw data, all the comments, and we see Sandra's summary, we now have a draft to look at and to say, this doesn't fully express, maybe we could add a sentence or two.
Exactly.
But that means we're adding to a given statement. I certainly don't want responsibility of writing those statements from the raw data. I think that belongs to Sandra, but if we can see the backup, we can say, good, nice, like that, or let's just add another sentence in there.
Got it.
And that might be then that we have to see this well before the superintendent does.
Yeah.
We would have to see it before the superintendent does.
I don't want to cut off conversation, but we have 9 more minutes with Sandra.
Okay, 9 minutes, good deal.
So I think I'm okay with us seeing all the raw data. I'm okay with us seeing the summary a little bit early, but it is a summary on him. I think he gets to see it. I don't think we should change the summary. I am okay if we as a board add our own addendum to the summary. I think we're hiring the VSBA for a very good reason, because they've done this and they know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. I agree with Tim that we all would look at the raw data and see 5 different separate scenarios. We probably might not agree at all, but that's gonna cause complete confusion if we start editing the summary. But I think we can probably, the 5 of us, come to consensus on, we didn't see this and we know our district better, so we want to see an added line at the bottom. The school board also notes that XYZ.
I don't have a problem
Am
with
I
that.
okay with that?
But I guess I would like that to be part of the document that goes to the superintendent.
Oh,
Not
Final.
that
Right,
the superintendent receives only the summary coming out of the VSBA, but
The addendum.
but the addendum is also included at the point that the superintendent receives the document.
Does that make sense to you, Sandra?
Yeah, so the initial meeting, when you get the summary report, it's really, here's what the data said. Here's what the comments said and the data said. And here's some potential goal areas you might think about. The second report, which is the finalized document that will be signed by the board chair and the superintendent, doesn't include that level of detail. It's much more brief and will really just hit the high points. You have plenty of time in between today and that final document to revise, to discuss, I'm happy to change that summary report because again, that's not going to be the final document that's going to go anywhere. So happy to engage in that. And I will just encourage you though, one of the tenets of a really effective superintendent evaluation is full transparency. So I really will encourage you to include Mark all the way through this process, through all the steps.
Yeah, what you just said points out to me that it's, the most important thing is a learning experience for everybody involved. So the staff, the leadership team, and the superintendent, and the board, just using it as a way to develop things better.
I do see it as part of a continuous improvement cycle. Mm-hmm.
Can I just make sure I got this?
Yeah.
So the board, and this is where I think I'm wrong, the board wants to see the data first, along with the raw comments, sanitized. But I feel like Mark should get to see those at the same time too.
Wait,
I feel like we're missing the transparency there.
I feel as if the
Oh,
board.
no, he's not getting the comments. We don't
No,
want
he's
Mark
not.
to see the
No,
comments.
he's not.
Okay.
But the
So,
board,
yeah, go
so
on.
here's how I understand
Give
it.
me the steps.
The board receives Sandra's breakdown of numbers and summary statements, along with all the comments that have been sanitized. And we do a compare and contrast, and we consider the summary that Sandra's written
Summary to comments.
and decide what, if there is to be an addendum coming from the board specific to our read of the document. Once we conclude that process with whatever addendums exist, it is at that point that Mark gets the document. So Mark would see the summary remarks coming from Sandra plus the board addendum at the same time. It would be one scoop. That's
And-
when he would get it.
And then Sandra writes her
Yes.
summary
Letter. That's right.
letter.
That's
Okay,
right.
I
That's
think
right.
I understand now. Thank
That's
you.
right.
Is that making sense to you, Sandra?
Does that make sense
I
to
know.
you?
It does, and I've been taking notes too, so
Okay.
hopefully between the two, we've got this.
Okay.
Um,
The entire video will be available online in a
yes,
couple of days.
exactly. That's great. And thank you. I know we are running out of time. So the needs to get us moving in your quick timeline are the current goals. So the goals you want us to embed into the survey, superintendent's goals. And then the list of names and email addresses that we're sending this off to. And I guess when would you like to start? What would your ideal start date be?
Oh, as soon as I can get all that together for you.
Okay, so let's pick a date as a deadline.
Okay,
Because we got a late start last year and got into a little bit of trouble, and we have to acknowledge that we might have a 2 or 3 week extension of whatever deadline we put out to encourage people to.
Hopefully just a couple days, yeah.
Good, okay, hopefully. So this is what, September 11?
it is.
The goals are coming from Mark? Do the goals in this case, or they,
Goal.
Yeah.
we come up with the
We
goals?
can-
No,
No, we already have them.
Yeah,
We already have them. I
Last
just-
year's
I-
evaluation.
from
Right.
last year's process.
Okay, got it, thank you. Okay, so what are we looking at? How quickly can we do this?
25th,
Of what, September?
September.
Whoa.
Why not? 2 weeks? Well, I've got a lot of the email addresses already.
Okay, so we're looking at the 25th,
Okay.
September, great.
So, Anne, I will have Carrie get you a contract. You don't have a contract yet, do you?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll get that to you.
Thank you. Put that on my calendar. Okay, great. Is there anything else for Sandra that anybody has? Sandra, thank you so much for coming. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Absolutely. My
Thank you.
pleasure. I'm going to shift over to the VSBA board meeting. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let me get my agenda back up here again. So I will entertain a motion to enter into consent agenda with the following note. There's a typo on the payrolls, and it says June 28th. It should say August 23rd. The amount is the same, $586,512.96.
That's fine. I have a comment about the minutes. When can I make it now?
Sure, we can take that out of consent agenda.
Should I make it now?
Sure, go ahead.
You have to-
Okay.
So we were moving, okay.
Yeah.
In the minutes, I noticed that there's a note that said there's a discussion about board reps to the contract negotiations remain silent. In my recollection, that was a comment that I didn't agree with. I still don't. I don't recall a discussion, but just to make it clear that if I'll be frank, if I were to join to volunteer for the contract negotiations, it would be up to my discretion to speak out or not. I wouldn't agree to remain silent.
I think that since we've committed to being as part of this negotiation committee, while we should maintain self-knowledge that most of us are not experienced in this and that we can make mistakes, we can't forbid ourselves from speaking. That would be wrong, I agree about that.
Yeah,
I
and
just hope that whoever goes will try to, understand their own limitations.
it's important too that you can't have the SU member going into negotiations with the different understandings, rules than the SD reps who are Ruby and, is it you, Sean?
No, it's Ruby and Kim Price.
Kim.
you're saying there's a distinction to be made between the SU rep and the SD rep? I'm sorry.
No, well, the SU talked about remaining silent. We didn't talk about that with the SD.
I thought it was more of a recommendation.
And it was also before I spoke to Pietro, who said, yes, please, your board should be
Okay.
on that.
Okay, and it's all three
That's
boards.
understood,
Yes.
okay.
We'll get to that when we talk about that later. How do you want me to adjust the minutes?
Oh, no,
No.
you don't have.
Oh, you're, okay. Oh, okay. All right. So the minute, okay.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Terrific.
Did Deborah move the consent agenda?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
We have reached the point of the agenda where we entertain public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone from the public who has anything they would like to say?
Yes, I would like to say something.
Sure, hi, could you identify yourself by name and town, please?
Sure, I'm Melissa, and I am from Brattleboro. And hello, everybody. I had kind of a question, and then also something I would like the board, the district to consider. So I'm curious about what the current training is for staff in the district, around like physical intervention, if that's needed for students, what model you use. Like, do you use crisis prevention and intervention, or what's used in the district currently? I'm a little bit out of the loop as far as that goes.
Hi, it's Tate Erickson. I'm the Director of Special Education. We do use Nonviolent Crisis Prevention and Intervention, CPI, as our district policy, and we do everything we can not to have a physical restraint and to really focus on our de-escalation before we get to that point, and to have a relationship and to work with students so that they can identify what's not working for them and get the help they need. Unfortunately, at times we do have to keep them safe from others, and so that is our primary mode.
So
Okay,
Melissa, I just want to add, I'm Deborah Stanford and Chair of the Policy Subcommittee. We have just left a policy meeting talking about this very issue. Yes, a policy F21, restraint and seclusion. And we are in the process of taking a very close look at that policy. But Tate Erickson, who is Director of Special Education, just summarized it perfectly.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. That's good to hear. And that leads me into and I see someone I know here just joined. Hi, Susie. So I'm curious if the board is aware of Crisis Prevention Institute's collaboration with another organization, the Alliance Against Restraint and Seclusion. They came out with a new program through CPI called Reframing Behaviors. And it's kind of a different model. It's neuroscience based, and it's very focused more on the prevention aspect. So the building a healthy, positive school culture, and it's not a kind of, as one of the people from the Alliance put it, it's not a one and done training. It's a kind of a different model of a subscription-based service. And they provide ongoing support throughout the school year for schools and districts. And it sounds like a really progressive model that's really worth it for the district and the board to consider. And I would just wondered what your familiarity with it was. It just came out this year. Like, I think they, they rolled it out in June or something. So it's very new.
Yeah, it hasn't been brought to our attention yet, but thank you for doing so. We have a number of trainers that we work with, and so we can do some investigation around that. It's great.
Yeah. Great. I'd urge you to check out the program. It's right on the CPI website. And, you know, I think they'd be happy to share information about it. And also, I think it's Guy Stevens is the founder of the Alliance Against Restraint and Seclusion. He's very passionate about this work and about using evidence-based interventions to really build a healthier school culture where the need for those types of restraints and seclusion-based models is really decreased quite a bit. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to make a comment at this point? Okay, I guess not. Moving on to finance. I see Frank isn't here, so we don't, I mean, do you have a financial report at all for us now?
No, Frank is at a conference today. So
Yeah, happens. And the other thing on the finance agenda was selecting board representatives to the contract negotiation team. It was noted that this is a commitment. If you are committed to be on this team, you are committed to going to all of the meetings. But the district has selected their reps, and now the SU needs theirs, and Vernon will, of course.
I was gonna say, where did we come in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
we need you to.
Okay.
So
you
you
got-
about Vernon.
I will not let you.
Good.
So Ruby and Kim.
Kim,
Okay.
correct, yes.
Once again, what's the timeline of negotiations, settlement?
Deborah knows.
I think it's November, possibly, hopefully ending by February, maybe not. It is meeting once a week, 4-hour meeting. The meetings typically start, if I remember correctly, at 4 p.m. And they definitely will not be scheduled on a board meeting day. So you will never miss your board meeting.
I wouldn't say every meeting's 4 hours, but they can be. You know, we can get into the weeds sometimes. But
And who will the participants be?
Frank and myself, and then the union representation. Typically, there's the union president and 2 other members.
So a relatively small group.
Yeah.
So how many people are you looking to have be from the school board?
I think we were talking about 2 reps per board, but I mean, this is not a voting situation, you know, where we balance voting. We'll vote as a large group, not at this level. So if only one person is willing to do it, then only one person is willing to do it. Yes,
I volunteer.
bless you. Starting to look like one person,
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to decide, because
because you could come from Vernon
I could
too.
come from Vernon too. But I volunteer also.
Well, thank you.
All right.
That way Vernon only comes up with one person. Then you can sort of,
I can, well, what I would like to do though is take this back to Vernon and at least say, I did volunteer, but Walter, if you would, or I don't wanna,
well, you can be the rep from here, and if they need you, you could also be the rep from there.
okay.
Yes, Sam.
My daughter's a BUHS grad and a union organizer. Can I bring her?
Yeah.
No. I don't mean to bring it to you, but you are management. Hey,
This is all executive session, right?
the negotiations. Well, thank you very much, Tim and Carrie.
She's good.
And so I should take this back to Vernon, or will
Yeah,
you bring it to
Vernon,
Vernon, or?
Vernon was-
Okay.
We can both bring.
Okay.
We want representatives from Vernon as well. Okay, so moving on to the administrative report.
Okay, maybe we'll start with resignations and new hires. So we have 1 resignation tonight, Laura how to pronounce her? Tarleton. is moving on, has moved on to another school district.
Do I hear a motion to accept the resignation of Laura Carlton?
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we have 3 new hires. Linda Laconi, special ed at UHS. Samia Abbas, the homeless liaison. And Diana Larson Warner, speech language.
Margot Frank.
Oh,
Dana's already been approved.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're reading a list of people I think we approved at the,
The last meeting?
no, the
Oh, we
personnel
did,
meeting.
we did do that. We
We-
did
we-
do Sammy.
so who's that?
Margot Frank,
Margot Frank.
speech language
Yeah,
pathologist.
which I thought you also did at that
Yeah, I think we did, that was all.
Dana and
done it.
Marco,
It wasn't,
but it wasn't in the
it
minutes.
wasn't in the minutes.
But I thought you said both of their names.
Wait, let me look.
We had a policy meeting, I remember the homeless liaison name.
Cause now I, right, I
That's
had
what
trouble. Hold
Clicked
on,
it,
hold
and it
on.
was just an accident that we hadn't revoked hiring
Remember I was
policy.
I was on a walk.
That's right,
I
yeah,
had
and
a
it was
meeting
like,
with you all.
there you go.
That was August 28th. We did Dana Larson Warner, Linda Laconi, and Sammy Abbas. Yes,
Okay.
we did them.
So Margot Frank.
Oh, so we just need Margot. Hold
Margot.
on. Okay, let me get
Okay.
that here. So it's just Margot Frank, speech language pathologist.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. I'm trying to think of a time we ever said no.
Okay, thank you very much. Brief report here. We're in our 3rd week of school, as you know, first full week of school. It's been really exciting having children back in our buildings. And it's been really exciting to open up our new public preschool in Brattleboro, the Brattleboro Early Childhood Center on Canal Street. I don't know if you've driven by and seen the building. We've really opened it up by cleaning up the outside, and the inside is really beautiful as well. I haven't quite made it over there yet to get into a classroom. That is my goal for tomorrow. Randy, I don't know if you've been over there yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You mind telling us a little bit about it?
Oh, it's just such, it just had gotten tired, you know, and so now the inside is bright and cheerful and welcoming. It feels like a place you want to be in, you want to bring your children to. The classroom teacher, Lauren Pearlstein, who worked for our district last year in Guilford, has created the most beautiful classroom space with a lot of natural materials, and it's just an incredible classroom. Our numbers are still low, and that's pretty consistent across the nation even, from what I'm hearing in pre-K this year. But programming is going well, and my team, my special ed team, is working closely with that classroom. So one of our goals was to really work on inclusion in there, and so that's been going really well. And my team is using the space also for our play group and our services with children, so that's been fantastic. It's just like phenomenal. I'm so grateful that this was able to move forward with, you know, for everybody's support.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the work that went into getting the school opened up. It's been the work of many people.
You know, actually, I would really like to take a moment. It was an incredible group of people and work that came, you know, people came together to collaborate and put this together, which was, you know, needed and amazing. But I'd love to really highlight Rodney Holland and Harold Wright.
Yep.
They have put blood, sweat, and tears into this space. There is so much, they're taking so much pride in the work. They care so much about the safety of our staff and students, the space being beautiful and usable, and they have worked tirelessly to get that space to where it is right now. Everything you see physically, things you don't see behind the scenes around the, you know, FM kinds of things, they have been phenomenal. I personally think FM tend to be the unsung heroes of our district. They're really holding us together in so many ways on that front, and I am just I have endless gratitude for them and the work they've done to help us get that project off the ground.
Thank you for saying that. And we only have 5 kids in the program right now, but so plenty of room. And the hope is, as more awareness is available to the community, that we'll add throughout the school year. But we'll see. I will report out at future meetings progress with that school.
How lovely for those 5 children.
What's the age of
4-year-olds.
all 4-year-olds?
Yeah.
You can't start if you have 3.
You have to be 4 by September 1st.
And then, of course, we do have a preschool at the Oak Grove School as well. And I think we have about 11 or 12 kids
I think we're at 11
in
now.
that cohort. So in Brattleboro, about 17 kids in preschool this year. But with capacity to grow, I mean, we have space. We could have 3 cohorts in there next year if there was a need for it. So that's what's really exciting.
Just a question, how do you make a distinction between which children go to Canal and which go to Oak Grove?
That's a really good question for Mary. I don't know, Mark, if you have insight on that, but there's some kids might have a sibling already at Oak Grove.
Right.
And even though students who go to either the Beck Center or Oak Grove, their elementary school, Beck is an Oak Grove classroom, their elementary school is still to be determined unless they have a sibling. But if they've had a sibling in the Oak Grove, they typically just put them in that school. We weigh different options, services students might need, and access to, quicker access or more frequent access to services and so forth. We have several students that are English language learners in the Oak Grove classroom this year, so that has been, I don't know a lot about it, I haven't been there yet, but I've been in communication with the teacher. She's super excited about that opportunity. So it's some parent desire, it's kind of a mix of, but getting a slot is a lottery system when we have that, when we have an abundance of
So and as a reminder, Mary Kaufman who's the Oak Grove principal, is also serving as the principal of Beck as well. So she's the point person. We also had our first full administrative meeting last Friday. I brought a copy of the agenda so you can see kind of how we go about our business. And I think you'll see, some connections to last night's presentation on the CIP.
There you go.
So it was a really inspiring way to start the school year. After the introduction and the review of norms, we started the year with about 12 of our teacher leaders joining us, presenting the EL implementation work that they had been pursuing throughout the summer and the spring months. It was very powerful. They had plenty of slides to share. They put us through a protocol where we responded to prompts that they had created. So it was a very interactive presentation. And what I appreciated was that they're very clear about things that they think we need, educators need, for this implementation to be successful. So I thought that clarity was great. It was a very collaborative way to start the morning. As you can see, as you move through the day, we then had a CIP micro lab protocol where we developed accountability partners. So that's a way to keep each other on point throughout the year, that we're following the CIP and doing what we said we would do. After the break, we did more extended work around CIP and what does it look like at your individual sites? What is the rollout going to look like, and what are next steps? How is the CIP going to be reflected in your upcoming staff meetings? So we did a lot of work around that and a lot of sharing of different of different ways principals are gonna launch that work with their schools. Shannon and Michaela led us in some work around diversity, equity, and social justice. Our afternoon, we started the afternoon with, you've seen Michael's Title IX slideshow, professional development slideshow, so he provided that professional development to the full team. And then as we ended the day, we looked really deeply into the VTCAP assessment data that we reviewed last night. We reviewed the data systems that we do have in place in the district. And again, we're using our accountability buddies to ensure that we're, following what we've set out and set as best practice. And then we did a review of the school board presentation calendar where folks on the team signed up for different months throughout the year. So that it's not like I'm supposed to present next week, let's put this together. But it's providing kind of a long view to work on those presentations collaboratively. And then of course we ended the day with just administrivia, some bits we call bits and bobs, kind of funny, but just announcements to keep on the radar. So just wanted to provide this as an example. If you turn the page over, we can have kind of goals and outcomes of the day that we stated right up in the beginning of the meeting. And typically these meetings are 50 to 60 slides. I mean, it's a ton of work that goes into planning these meetings. Ran myself, Whitney, Tate will really do the lion's share of the planning, but the outcome of the meetings has been really rich. It's real work. It's professional development day. It's not administrative. We feel like it's really important work, and it's tied to the goals of our CIP. And that's how we keep it alive on a monthly basis, and then pair that with weekly check-ins with elementary principals, and then BU6 administrators as well. So, just wanted to provide that as an example.
What was the attendance number?
About 25, and then with the teachers about 35, 37. Teachers stayed with us for about an hour and a half.
You do it here?
Right here.
Yeah.
So you know that at the September 24th regular SD meeting, the board is going to vote on the CIP goals. If there's so much tremendous effort has been put into discussing these goals among your leadership team, I hope that there's an understanding that there might be some modifications to it still. It's a continuous improvement plan, and there may be another goal added if the board agrees or not, or a modification to one of the goals.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up tonight is Frank and I met last week thinking about central office needs, and we are going to pursue some clerical support at the office. Last year we had an extended leave that really put a wrench in the system. I mean, we still got the work done, but people put in long hours to ensure that payroll was on time, warrants were ready to go, agendas were ready for school board meetings. And then we're anticipating another leave of absence coming up in the next month through the winter likely. So to be proactive, we're going to start advertising for a part-time clerical support person to help them. Essentially the human resources office. And another factor is Michael taking on Title IX coordination. It's an awful lot of work. Part of his work is also developing professional development and doing work with the admin team, which is not a past practice of that position. So we're seeing some holes in just kind of how things are moving in the office in terms of the paper mill. So
I think that's great, because it's quite a hardship when someone takes a day off
Yeah.
and suffers repercussions for that day off.
Yeah.
That does not feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, good.
We have a great group. I mean, they work tirelessly.
Really hard.
Really hard. So we haven't announced it yet, but I think there's gonna be a lot of really happy people that we have some assistance
Good.
coming.
Good.
Last year when we talked about the admin assistant for the SD board, and I mentioned the SU board too, but one of the arguments that Frank made was that you have a whole SEAL staff there that could chip in to help the board. It doesn't sound like that's a feasible alternative now with everybody kind of maxed out.
Yeah, and again, we had a leave of absence last spring that really hurt us, and we have one coming up.
So the board has still that problem of how can we get admin work done for the board that is still pressing.
So Mo Hart would still be the point person.
Yeah, and I think there has been a greater move, perhaps in slow steps on the part of the board, to reach out to the central office to say, we really need this done. And what I'm experiencing is that central office personnel have been made available to the extent that they can be in their work schedule, but definitely availability.
So appreciate your support with that. We won't announce it quite yet, probably next week, but we'll be on the search for an assistant to help out.
Only a part-time?
It's really kind of up to Frank in terms of the numbers and what we can look at. We were talking 30 hours to start, so not quite full-time, but not quite half-time as well.
Right.
So, and that's the report for tonight.
Terrific. Any further questions for Mark? Apparently not. Okay. Moving on to new business. The first order of business will be to resume this board's authority in hiring. And I'm going to suggest that next year when we pass it off to the personnel committee, that we set an end date. I'm gonna say September 30th, because that will allow for overlap, last minute hires. Personnel committee is more nimble than an entire board. So anyway, I would entertain a motion for this board to resume its authority in hiring personnel.
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Before I forget it, last night we were presented with a list of pre-K providers that we did not vote on because I was not real clear on the warning. So I would entertain a motion to approve those pre-K providers that were listed last night.
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, the new pre-K providers are approved, but you know what? I don't have the paperwork that I bet I need to sign. So,
I don't have it with me either.
roll it. Mo can get in touch and
Yeah.
I'll come sign.
Do I have to sign that too?
Yes, you will have. to
Okay,
sign
would
it.
you just tell me when and I'll go
Yeah.
to the central office?
It'll be
Okay.
clerks. The other thing I have another thing I have under new business is you've got the information that I sent you from VSBIT.
I just love that name.
I know, VSBIT is a cute word. Does anyone want to go and vote for us?
Which day of the week is that?
That is Friday morning, the 25th at 8 o'clock in the Blessed AM prior to breakfast.
I don't think I'm gonna be there on Friday.
Okay, we can send them our proxy. Again, it's not a contested election, it's just adding some new trustees to the VSBIT board. But I understand insurance law and all these magic papers are required by insurance law, not by school law. So I would entertain a motion to send our proxy along to VSBIT for the annual business meeting on October 25th of this year. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by, oh, Deborah, did you have
So, the proxy, just tell me what that means, please. I know what the word means, but, yeah.
We are sending them our vote in favor, I'm sure, of these new board members.
Where it's not contested, right?
Right.
So it's the two, right,
Yes, and two people. and-
right. Mhm. So, yeah,
Alright, so
Okay,
proxying,
yes.
okay.
so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'm gonna take that as no opposition, so I will send this off to VSBIT and we will send them our proxy.
Right.
Thank you very much, that's a tidy little bit of business that we got rid of. The board calendar. Has everyone taken a look at ours, not the SD's, but the SU's board calendar? Are there other presentations that, I sent you all an email saying please look at it and let me know if there are other presentations you might be interested in. We tend to be very efficient in our meetings, so if we wanted to talk about special ed and food the same night, that would be possible. So don't worry about anything like that. I mean, I would say we've got to give folks in central office at least a month's notice to give us a presentation on anything. But if, if other things come up through the year. For example, when we do re-sign the food service contract.
I was gonna say, now you got me thinking, what year are we in for that?
We are in it, we're in
a
two, I think we're in two now.
2, okay,
But we have to re-sign it every year.
right, but then transportation, we added a year?
It's 1 year.
We're only in a 1?
But when
Okay.
we go to vote on the food service contract, I would love to hear an update
Oh, yeah,
from food service.
Okay.
And see how farm to school, and I'd be willing to meet farm to school if they have some reason to meet with us. Big fan. Okay, did anyone have any suggestions tonight? Okay, feel free to email them to me. That is all we have under new business. Under old business, we present the following policy for adoption. F41, the policy on section 504 and ADA. Most of us have had a lot of discussion about this in meeting. Do you have any questions, Sean? All those in favor of adopting policy F41, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have completed most of our agenda for this evening, except I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session under 1 V.S.A. 313A7, the academic records or suspension or discipline of students, as well as 1 V.S.A. 313A1A contracts. Do I hear-
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Any discussion? All those in favor, please. I'm
Will
sorry?
they be guests?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, Sean. We would like to invite in Mark Spino and Tate Erickson. You gonna come with us, Bryn? Good. You can go home. Yeah, I was gonna say, then you can go home. That's what was good about it. I do not know that there are any guests from,
There shouldn't be.
well, Tim had indicated that we might have some guests.
There's nobody on Zoom.
Randy, were you gonna go?
The people who were here before, Susie is still here. and However.
I sign out now. This is
Okay,
my key to
you
sign
going
out.
now? Okay, so.
Okay, thanks so much.
I should.
Thank
Really great. Thank you.
Okay.
Susie West is done.
So, no, we do not have something.
Bye, Brandy. Bye, Brent.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, so are we staying here? Or are we going in there?
well, we could go in there. Peter, there will not be any action taken. Does anyone think they have any new business?
Nope.
So-
Bye, Kai.
Okay. So I guess we will